Hi, this is Chris with Nightfall Audiobooks, and this week I have for you The Dead Girlfriend by R.L. Stine from the Point Horror series. If you're not familiar with Point Horror, it's still published by Scholastic, but it tends to be its own thing. Fear Street is kind of like the mainstream PG-13 or occasional R-rated movie by a large company, let's say Legendary. But you can think of Point Horror as being the more indie film kind of thing. Sort of like how Miramax was for Disney. You would never expect Disney, the same studio that has given us Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and Aladdin and all the rest, to also produce movies like Clerks and Pulp Fiction. In much the same vein, Point Horror is its own contained universe. Each story is its own story, with the exception of Halloween Night and The Babysitter. The Point Horror series contains some of my favorite R.L. Stine stories. Hit and Run, I Saw You That Night, Beach House, The Snowman, and The Hitchhiker. The Point Horror series is important to the channel because it gets us out of Shadyside and off of Fear Street and away from that doomed city, and we can just explore something new for once. Not have to really worry about, hey, when are these tropes going to show up, and when is David Metcalf and Jade Smith and Dina Martinson going to appear in, and which party are they at that Suki Thomas is throwing this weekend, and haunted cars, and all the rest. I have not read this before. I acquired this through Abe Books or Thrift Books or eBay or somewhere. This is a new acquisition to my library. I bought it because it was cheap and I needed it for the channel. The back mentioned something about a girl being dead, but she doesn't know she's dead, and I guess we will learn all about that. This reminds me of a book called Haunted from the Fear Street series that was about a girl who was being, haunted, but the ghost was not from the past or from the present, and it involves a little bit of time travel. But it is a very good story. It's among one of my top favorites, and if you haven't already, you can listen to it on my channel. So let's begin. What should I read next? I don't know. Send me an email, nightfallaudiobooks@gmail.com. I'm also at home right here on YouTube at Nightfall Audiobooks. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that join button to show your support. Any help is greatly appreciated. I really, truly do mean that. I also have a Patreon page. Patreon.com/nightfallaudiobooks. So tell your friends, tell your mom, tell whoever you think would like to listen to me, tell them tales from R.L. Stine. Thank you very much for listening, and let's begin. Welcome to a Nightfall Audiobooks production of The Dead Girlfriend by R.L. Stine, a Point Horror novel, Book 13. Chapter 1. The first time I saw Jonathan Morgan, he terrified me. I probably should have known then, at that very moment, staring into the sun at him from my bike, to stay away. Danger here. Danger and fear. I think I knew at that moment that Jonathan meant trouble. But a person doesn't always listen to these signals. A person doesn't always listen to her sensible self. At least, I didn't. And before I knew it, I found myself trapped by Jonathan. Caught up in his sadness. Caught up in his mystery. A mystery that began in murder. It all started on such a beautiful day, warm and promising, fresh as only a day in late April can be. I borrowed my brother Kenny's bike and went riding. I went to explore Shocklin Falls, our new home. Kenny's bike was a clunky BMX, heavy and slow, and the seat was too high for me. Do you believe I'm shorter than my little brother? It's so annoying. But my 21 speed had been stolen just before we moved, so what choice did I have? I'm 16 and I have a driver's license, but you can't really explore in a car. Bike riding is my passion. I love the rush of wind against my face, to feel the pedals under my sneakers, the control, the way it makes my legs throb and my heart pound, the total freedom of it. You can't feel that in a car. Dad promised I could buy a new bike as soon as the insurance company paid for the stolen one. I really didn't want to wait that long, but Dad wasn't in any mood for arguments. He and Mom are still unpacking cartons. I think they'll be unpacking cartons until next Christmas. You just don't realize how much stuff a family of 4 owns until you move to a new town. Anyway, I took off on Kenny's bike. I'm such a shrimp, I should have lowered the seat, but I was too impatient to get away and explore Shocklin Falls. I was wearing green Lycra bike shorts and a bright blue sleeveless t-shirt. It was the first really warm spring day, and the afternoon sun felt hot on my back. I had just washed my hair, which is long and blonde and very straight. I had it tied behind my head with a blue ribbon. I knew the sun would dry it. The air smelled so sweet. All down my street the dogwood trees had blossomed. It was like riding under majestic white arches, so pretty and unreal. Prettier than real life, I thought. I get these kinds of things when I'm out bike riding. It didn't take too long to explore Shocklin Falls. It's a very small town. The community college where Mom and Dad are going to start teaching next semester is at one end. Then come quiet streets, shady under rows of old trees, lined with small, nice-looking houses. The big expensive houses are out by the falls on the other side of town, and in the middle is a small shopping district, 2-story buildings mostly, a 2-screen movie theater, a bank, and a post office. Not much else. The nearest mall is in Cedar, 2 towns away. I rode slowly past the small shops. For a Saturday afternoon, the town wasn't very crowded. I think most people were home doing spring cleaning, working on their gardens and yards. An old station wagon rumbled past, filled with teenagers, its windows open, radio blaring an old Def Leppard song. The noise drew frowns and headshakes from 2 elderly women about to cross Main Street arm in arm. A bike shop on the corner of Main and Walnut caught my eye. I climbed off Kenny's bike and walked it up to the front window. I pressed my nose against the glass, peering inside. Looked like a pretty good selection. I'd definitely have to check it out later. I climbed back onto Kenny's bike and coasted unsteadily off the curb back onto the street. Is that all there is to town? I wondered. Yup, I'd seen it all. I circled the block once again, then headed toward the falls. I hadn't seen the famous falls yet. Mrs. Pratt, the real estate agent who sold us our house, couldn't stop raving about how beautiful and spectacular they are, so I was saving the best part of my tour for last. Mrs. Pratt described the falls as rising up high on a sheer rock cliff, then cascading straight down like a steamy white curtain into the wide Minnehaha River below. She was good at describing things, which I guess you need to be if you're going to sell real estate. Anyway, she said it was as pretty as Niagara Falls, except much smaller, of course, and you could see 3 towns from up at the top. I followed Main Street past the shopping district, and soon found myself in the fancy part of Shocklin Falls. Big houses. Some of them looked like mansions to me. A lot of them had teams of gardeners out working in the yards, planting beds of flowers and weeding and clearing away the dead leaves. I had a little scare when a snarling German shepherd came bounding after me. Its owner was yelling for the dog to come back, but of course the dog paid no attention. I began pedaling furiously, standing up to get better speed. Luckily, the dog gave up after 2/3 of a block and contented itself to end the chase and bark out a warning for me to stay away. Okay, I can take a hint, I called back to it, still pedaling, standing up. The big houses gave way to woods. The trees were still mostly bare, the spring leaves just beginning to open. A squirrel scampered up a tree, startled by my silent gliding intrusion. I found the bike path Mrs. Pratt had described. It curved through the woods, climbing higher as it went, becoming steeper and steeper as it made its way out through the thick trees. After a 10-minute ride, I found myself at the top. I was pleased to see that I wasn't at all out of breath. Being in good shape is really important to me. It's one reason I always prefer my bike to a car. I kept pedaling. The woods were all to my right now. To my left, the steep cliff edge, a sheer drop to black rocks below. I slowed down. There was no guardrail or anything. At some points, the dirt bike path came within a foot or 2 of the cliff edge, and the path was really curvy. I heard the falls before I saw them, a soft, steady roar that grew louder as I approached. And then the path curved, and the falls were right in front of me. How can I describe them? They were dazzling. The white water fell straight down, sparkling like a million diamonds, splashing back up in a shimmery white mist. Looking down, I could see the wide brown river flowing between green banks, and I could see far into the distance, over trees, over fields. I could see the town, tiny like a miniature, and beyond it another town, and then, in the misty distance, a 3rd town. I slowed to a stop. The bike path ended abruptly at a tall pile of gray granite rocks. I shielded my eyes from the sun, and then I saw him, a teenage boy, wearing jeans and a yellow t-shirt. He was standing over the falls, right on the edge. I gasped and gripped the handlebars. I hadn't expected anyone to be standing there. He didn't see me. He was staring straight down to the jagged black rocks below the falling water. He looks like Luke Perry, I thought. He had the same James Dean-style flat top. But I didn't have much time to think about his looks. Still staring straight down, he took a step forward. My heart stopped. I realized what he was about to do. "Stop!" I screamed, trying to be heard over the roar of the falls. "Don't jump! Please, don't jump!" Chapter 2. He cried out and stepped back. My screams had startled him. I jumped off the bike and hurried toward him. The bike clattered onto the rocks behind me. "Hey!" he called. His expression changed from surprise to confusion. He jammed his hands into his jeans pockets and he moved away from the edge toward me. He was tall and very handsome. He did look like Luke Perry. He had sideburns, too. He was really tanned. He had a cleft chin. He stared at me with striking green eyes. I guess I was staring hard at him. That's how I managed to see his face so clearly. "I thought you were someone else," he said, shouting over the sound of the falls. He smiled, a crooked smile, but very handsome. I think I fell in love with him then, or something like that. I'm not sure. It's impossible to explain. I was so embarrassed about shouting like that. "I thought you were going to—" I started, but I didn't want to finish my sentence. He was still smiling, hands jammed into his pockets, his yellow t-shirt fluttering in the wind. "You what?" "I'm sorry," I stammered. "I saw you at the edge, and—" I get a slight stammer whenever I'm really nervous, and believe me, I was really stammering now. He laughed. He had a great laugh, sort of tossed his head back and crinkled those incredible green eyes. "You thought I was going to jump?" The smile faded. His eyes burned into mine, studying me. I nodded. I could feel my face turn red. I tugged at my hair. It was still wet. "I'm just waiting for someone," he said. "Looks like they're not coming." I've never been up here before," I stammered, lowering my eyes. I didn't like standing there. I don't normally have trouble with heights, but we were up so high, and the drop was so straight, so steep, and the rocks below looked so sharp and pointed. "You go to Shocklin High?" he asked. I shook my head. "Starting Monday. We just moved here from Ohio." "I'm Annie Kieran," I said awkwardly. I always find it so hard to introduce myself like that. I don't know why. "Jonathan Morgan," he said. He removed his hands from his jeans pockets and shook my hand. Very formal. He grinned. I loved the cleft in his chin, and I loved the way the wind blew through his hair, but it stayed standing up, every hair in place. I should have seen the sadness in those green eyes. I should have seen the fear, the dread, but of course I didn't. I should have asked him why he was standing right on the cliff edge like that, staring down so intently into the crushing waters. But of course I didn't. Instead I said, "It's so awesome up here." Pretty lame, but at least I had stopped stammering. "Yeah," he replied, scratching his right sideburn. "The town is so ordinary," I went on. "I mean, it's okay, but it's nothing special. You don't expect to find something like this." I motioned to the falls. Jonathan's eyes were on the woods behind me. "I left my bike back there," he said. "Wait right here. I'll go get it." "You like the bike ride?" I asked as he headed past me. "Yeah, a lot," he called back without stopping. He disappeared behind a wide pile of granite rocks. I wrapped my arms around my chest and stared out at the town below. Even with the afternoon sun high above, it was a little chilly up there. What a fabulous spot, I thought. I knew I'd be riding my bike up there often. I suddenly wondered if I'd be riding it beside Jonathan. I had this silly idea that we were fated to meet up there, like an old black and white romantic movie. Maybe I'll ask him to go riding next weekend or something, I thought. I saw him approaching, walking a sleek black racing bike. No, he must have a girlfriend, I realized, a sinking feeling in my stomach. He's too good-looking not to have a girlfriend. He said he was meeting someone up there. He leaned his bike against one of the big stones and made his way over the dirt toward me, taking long, slow strides. "So you just moved here?" he asked, pulling a long strand of grass from my hair. "Yeah, my parents are going to teach at Logan, the community college." "Weird time to move," he said, staring over my shoulder at the falls. "Tell me about it," I groaned. "Changing schools and everything is horrible." He gazed at me thoughtfully. "You a senior?" "Junior," I replied. "Have you met anybody? Kids, I mean." "Just you," I said, laughing. He laughed too, a silent laugh that sounded more like coughing. "Then I guess I should show you around or something," he said, suddenly shy. He should be on TV, I thought. He's so great looking. "I could give you a bike tour of Shocklin Falls," he offered, motioning to his bike. "That'll take a minute or two," he joked. "Well, I've sort of had the bike tour," I said, and instantly regretted it. Why did I say that? I scolded myself. He was offering to ride around with me, and I told him no. What a jerk I am. I could feel my face redden again. Jonathan stared at me thoughtfully. "I'll introduce you to some Shocklin kids," he said. "Great," I gushed. He turned his gaze toward the woods as if he saw something. "I have this friend," he started. "He's my best buddy. He's a total dork, but he's my best buddy. Actually, he's a wild man. You'll like him." "Great," I repeated, starting to stammer again. Was he planning to fix me up with this wild man friend? "His name is Caleb," Jonathan continued, still staring toward the woods. "Caleb Dorsey." He snickered, as if remembering something funny about Caleb. "Caleb's parents have to work every Friday night," Jonathan continued. "So we all get together at Caleb's and have a party, every Friday. It's great. It gets pretty wild sometimes." Sounds great, I said. Why couldn't I think of some other word? I scolded myself. How many times in one conversation can a person use the word great? He must think I'm a real jerk. So would you like to go with me Friday night? To Caleb's, I mean? His green eyes seemed to light up as he stared at me expectantly. You mean like a date? I asked. Annie, shape up, I ordered myself. It's not like you've never been on a date before. You were pretty popular back in Middletown. Yeah, Jonathan said, grinning. Like a date. Sure, I said. Great. Great? Did I really say it again? Great, he repeated softly. He kicked at the dirt with his sneaker and glanced at the falls. I've got to go. Me too, I said. The sun dipped behind a wide white cloud. The air grew chillier. Shadows slid along the ground. We made our way across the dirt to get our bikes. I was feeling really good. It was only my third day in Shocklin Falls, and the first boy I'd met, a really great-looking guy, had asked me out. Not a bad start, I thought. Not bad at all. Jonathan picked up his bike by the handlebars and walked it over to me. Then we headed around to the other side of the big rocks where I had left mine. To my surprise, the bike was standing up, tilted against a rock. I remembered just letting it fall when I went running over to Jonathan, thinking he was going to jump. Strange, I thought, and then I gasped loudly, Whoa! I hurried over to the bike and bent low to examine it. Hey, what's going on? I cried, my heart pounding in my chest. Both tires had been slashed to ribbons. Chapter 3. I don't believe this, I muttered. I ran one hand over the cut tire. A chunk of rubber fell off in my hand. Who? I started, but the words caught in my throat. I was crouched down, staring in total disbelief at the slashed tires on Kenny's bike. Jonathan was standing right behind me, his shadow falling over me. I don't get it, he said quietly. There's no one else up here. I gazed up at him. His eyes were narrowed on the woods, as if searching for someone there. I followed his glance. The trees were mostly bare. It would be easy to see someone running away. The woods were empty. I shuddered. I suddenly felt cold all over. Kenny's going to kill me, I whispered, climbing to my feet. Who's Kenny? Jonathan asked, still searching the woods. My little brother. It's his bike. Jonathan scowled. I'll help you walk it home, he said glumly, avoiding my eyes. That's okay, I said. I can. No. He grabbed the handlebars of Kenny's bike. Take my bike. I'll walk this one, he snapped. He suddenly sounded very angry. I obediently took his bike. We began to walk side by side along the bike path. This is so dumb, I said. Why would someone do this to me? Jonathan didn't answer. I mean, who would climb all the way out to the top of the falls just to wreck some stranger's bike? I continued, my voice trembling. Jonathan still didn't reply. His angry expression startled me into silence. Why was he so angry? It wasn't his bike. His mood had changed so quickly it frightened me. We followed the path as it curved down through the woods. The sun remained behind clouds. The woods were shadowy now, shadowy and cold, as if spring had left and winter had returned. It seemed to take forever to get down to the street. I felt so awkward. I wanted to talk, to say something, anything, but Jonathan kept his eyes lowered to the ground, his jaw clenched. I could see the veins throbbing angrily at his temples. So I remained silent too. I just didn't get it. He volunteered to walk me home after all. I wasn't forcing him. Why was he angry at me? I was totally confused. It didn't make any sense. The ground leveled out when we reached Main Street. The sun reappeared, but it was nearly evening and the air remained cool. I live on Edgevale, I said softly. Okay, Jonathan replied, his expression a blank. Then we heard a sound behind us, a girl's voice calling. We both stopped and turned around. A girl rode up on a sleek red bike. Jonathan, she called, flashing him a warm smile. She had curly red hair which cascaded down her shoulders like a waterfall, and a face full of freckles. She wasn't exactly pretty. Her blue-gray eyes were kind of close together, and she had a short stub of a nose. I guess you'd call her cute. She was wearing black like her leggings and an oversized blue and white chocolate high t-shirt with a big S on the front. Ruby, Jonathan cried. Even though she was smiling at him so warmly, he didn't exactly seem pleased to see her. Hi, she said breathlessly, lowering her sneakers to the road. She glanced at me, then quickly returned her smile to Jonathan. What's happening? Bike trouble, Jonathan replied curtly. Ruby giggled for some reason. This is Annie, Jonathan told her. Annie, Kieran, I said. Annie Kieran. And that's my bike. I pointed to the bike Jonathan was walking. I mean, it's my brother's. I'm Ruby Bonds, she said, and, tossing her red hair behind her shoulders, quickly turned her attention back to Jonathan. I wasn't sure she'd even looked at me. Ruby, where are you coming from? Jonathan asked. Up at the falls? Her smile faded as she shook her head. She blushed. No way. I've just been riding all day. I've been cooped up all day helping my mom with spring cleaning, so I wanted to get a little exercise. You see Dawn today? Jonathan asked. No, I'm going over there tonight, Ruby told him, just to hang out. Annie just moved here, Jonathan said, suddenly remembering I was still there. Oh, Ruby replied, not terribly interested. But then she turned, narrowing her eyes to check me out. What happened to your bike? She asked. Somebody cut the tires, I told her. I really can't believe it. Ruby glanced dryly at Jonathan. I believe it, she muttered under her breath. She flashed Jonathan a look I couldn't interpret. Something was going on between the two of them, but I couldn't figure out what. Was Ruby the person Jonathan was waiting for to meet up at the falls? If she was, wouldn't he ask her why she didn't show up? I decided he had to be waiting for someone else. I had the feeling that Jonathan didn't like Ruby. She kept smiling at him, but I couldn't tell how she felt about him. I've got to go, Ruby said suddenly. She fiddled with the gear control on her handlebars. Then she turns to me. Watch out for Jonathan, she said through gritted teeth. Really? He's dangerous? A real dangerous guy? Ruby, Jonathan started to protest, but Ruby called out later and sped off, standing on her pedals and quickly disappearing around the corner. She's weird, Jonathan said. She was kidding about me, you know? Ruby and I are old pals. I saw that Jonathan was staring at me intently, studying my reaction to what Ruby had said. Yeah, I could tell she was joking, I said, but I wasn't so sure. She hadn't looked as if she were joking. She had looked very serious. Was she really warning me to stay away from Jonathan? Did she mean that he really was dangerous? What a crazy idea. I glanced once again at Jonathan. He looked perfectly okay to me. Better than okay. With those wild green eyes and that dark tan skin, he reminded me suddenly of a tiger. Tigers are dangerous, I warned myself. I don't care, I thought. A short while later, we were standing at the foot of my driveway. We traded bikes. Thanks, I said, for walking me home. That's okay. Sorry about your bike. You want to come in or something? I offered. He shook his head. I've got to get home. See you in school Monday. Yeah, great, I said. And then I added, nice meeting you. It sounded really stupid and phony. He ignored it. And don't forget Friday night, he said, climbing onto his bike. I won't. I'm looking forward to it. That's for sure. I watched him ride away, those long legs pedaling quickly, easily. I turned and started to drag Kenny's bike up the driveway, but then I stopped. Who was that at the corner? Someone was standing under the shadows of a tall hedge, someone on a bike, keeping close to the hedge, waiting for Jonathan. I stepped back toward the street, squinting hard to see who it was. Ruby! She was waiting for him at the corner. She pedaled away from the hedge, out of the shadows as he came near. They talked for a moment, close together, side by side on their bikes, and then I watched them ride off together. What's going on here? I wondered. What exactly is going on?